Attorney Michael Avenatti is going to need a lawyer. Senator Lindsey Graham plans to investigate alleged FISA abuses, and there's a song to help you pronounce one 2020 presidential contender's name correctly.
Team Rising is here. We've got Adam Hodge. He's a former DNC Communications Director and Senior Treasury Spokesman. He currently serves as the Vice President of SKD Knickerbocker. And Mica Mosbacher is a former RNC Finance Co-Chair and a member of the Trump 2020 Advisory Board. Team, welcome to you both. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to see you, friends.
Good morning.
Always a pleasure. Michael Avenatti, the gift that keeps on giving, arrested on 2 separate cases of alleged financial crimes. One of them that probably has gotten the most attention is he's alleged to have attempted to extort Nike, basically threatening to embarrass them if they don't pay his client and him a bunch of money for him to do some report or internal audit or whatever. But also he is alleged to have essentially stolen money from one of his clients to help float his own sort of personal debt and issues. Mica, what is the world coming to that this guy is even like a thing? What does it say about our culture that Michael Avenatti is so famous?
Whole new meaning to March Madness. And I think instead of betting on Florida or Gonzaga next week on BitBit, they're going to be voting on political, the online betting site Predictit, which during the Kavanaugh hearings, after Avenatti famously came out and said it's Christmas in October, and was representing Julie Swetnick, how quickly we've forgotten, and tried to portray Kavanaugh as guilty. And predicted that Kavanaugh would be confirmed. So I will be curious to see what they say about Avenatti, who should, as we should remember, not guilty, and presumption of innocence. Something that he did not provide as a courtesy to Kavanaugh.
But Adam, I remember when he was a hashtag resistance hero, appearing hundreds of times on cable news. People were talking about him as a possible formidable Democrat presidential
He was talking about himself that way.
Nobody with a moderate IQ.
There were people that were talking about it. I remember it.
I mean, people may have been talking about it. I don't think anybody took it seriously. Look, we all know that Michael Avenatti loves the spotlight. I think
I don't know that he loves the spotlight.
Well, he may not love the spotlight. He's clearly flown a bit too close to the sun after everything else. I think there are probably a lot of people in the White House doing some jumping jacks or high fives that he was indicted. I still think it doesn't distract from the fact that his other more famous client has proven to bring individual one to the forefront. I think the parts of his efforts have brought real charges and crimes. That doesn't change the fact that he's obviously a pretty detestable.
He wants you to know that he's not going to stop the fight, Adam. Here's what he had to say.
As all of you know, for the entirety of my career, I have fought against the powerful people and powerful corporations. I will never stop fighting that good fight.
Oh my God, give it a rest.
Yeah.
He's playing the victim, and I don't know, Buck, if you have any Nike shoes, but I'm predicting there'll be a new style out called the Avenatti.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no question that like the SDNY, let's not forget, is the same branch that brought the whole NCAA investigation into a bunch of the amateur athletics. So they clearly know the ins and outs of this investigation. I think Avenatti's probably got some in for some really rough days ahead of him. Well,
especially with what happened at Adidas. Remember, they charged that executive there with wire fraud back in October.
Oh, that's right.
And, for violating NCAA rules. So
we'll see.
What's going on with Lindsey Graham? He's got his eye on a new investigation.
On Monday at a press conference, Lindsey Graham declared that his next move is to go after Democrats and the Department of Justice over what happened to Trump. Graham has questioned whether the counterintelligence investigation was open as a backdoor to spy on the campaign. Mica, I think that, well, actually, wait, before I tell you what I think, let's hear what Lindsey Graham thinks.
I've been calling since the end of 2017 for a special counsel to be appointed to look at whether or not the FISA warrant process was abused for political purposes, whether or not a counterintelligence investigation was opened up regarding the Trump campaign as a backdoor to spy on the campaign. I still to this day am at a loss to explain why nobody went to President Trump to tell him there may be some people in your orbit that are connected to the Russians.
So, Mica, he wants an investigation of the investigators. I know a lot of Republicans are on board for this. What do you think?
Absolutely. What's deeply disturbing is the fact that a discredited dossier paid for by the DNC was the basis for a FISA warrant, and actually several warrants, including Carter Page. And so you have an individual who, regardless of what you think, has been on the air trying to defend himself because he feels his name has been impugned. So that's one issue. And secondly, I talked to two former FBI agents, both who have served for over 20 years, and they said, this is not my FBI. They're concerned, and you are an intelligence or former intelligence officer, they're concerned that the intelligence community was weaponized, and that those bad actors in the DOJ, Strzok, Page, as well as Andy McCabe under Comey, had their own political motivations and might have taken matters into their own hands, which would be an abuse of power. And Attorney General Barr has his work cut out for him because he has to try to restore the reputation of the FBI that has been stained with this kind of incidents.
I mean, Adam, I wish, and I know this is a fantasy, that we could actually have a look at the FISA process that was not partisan, that wasn't going to get caught up in witch hunt and all this like ridiculous stuff, but we could actually look at that process, because I do think that it is troubling that they were able to get FISA warrants on Carter Page multiple times. Like, we deserve to know how that process works, and if it truly is just a rubber stamp, that should not be the case, because they have incredible power over American citizens.
They do, but let's not forget Lindsey Graham, for decades, was the biggest champion of warrantless wiretapping, and so it's a little interesting to see him get religion now on privacy and security when it's good for his politics. I think that's what's really going on here. Like, he's worried about the primary in 2020. And doing whatever he can to sew up his base and be as close of a friend of the president, because he knows that wins in a primary. I think that's unfortunately going to be a scarlet letter when the history books are written in this period. It really is a shame that our politics and our democracy have been suborned by this whole effort. I think Lindsey Graham knows full well how the FISA process works. I think there's plenty of reason to believe that the whole investigation into Carter Page was legit, and hopefully we'll see more details of that investigation as the members of the Hill, members of Congress, keep going out and doing their investigation.
Less convinced than you that the investigation into Carter Page was legit, but we will have to see.
Well, the jury's out on that, but also, it's important to note that there is an ongoing investigation within the, IG's office, Michael Horowitz.
Right.
And so, they're still digging into this, and they can reopen other investigations as well.
That's a great
I mean,
point.
FISA abuse for political purposes would be a profound shock into the institutions of government that we have. That would be a big, big deal. By the way, Lindsey Graham tweeted out a response to somebody who used to run one of those institutions. We've got James Comey, who tweeted out so many questions while staring at a bunch of trees that are almost as tall as Comey. And then Lindsey Graham responded to him, could not agree more, see you soon. So I think there'll be more investigations. Everyone's going to be investigating everybody. In the meantime, not exactly a lot of great policy that's going to get passed anytime soon.
I randomly ran into Jim Comey in a New York hotel one time, and I can confirm that is a very tall man. Like, it was that sort of thing. You know how you see someone on the street and you're like, whoa, that's a tall person. I had that reaction first. Then I was like, wow, that really tall person looks like James Comey. And I was like, oh, that's Jim Comey. He's very tall.
I think he's 6'10". I mean, he's NBA
giant.
tall.
Yeah, he is a giant in his literal size.
Yeah.
Now maybe for a metaphorical giant, Crystal?
Yes.
Well, yeah. It will
Pete Buttigieg.
It will be interesting if he comes back and testifies to Congress.
Yes, it will. Many things will be interesting. Pete Buttigieg, mayor from Indiana, is making a bit of a splash in a new Emerson poll. He's pulled into third. It goes Biden and Bernie, then Buttigieg. And we all thought the three Bs were going to be Biden, Bernie, and Beto. Maybe it's Buttigieg instead. And Kamala coming in there right after him. They were the only four candidates in double digits. Many people are excited about this, but many other people have questions about just how to say Mayor Pete's last name. We have a helpful song for you written by someone that can help you out with that.
Heat, Boot, and Edge. A song to help you stop saying it wrong. It's Heat, Boot, and Edge. It's not Heat Badger Judge, but almost. It's not Pete Boat Church, though you're getting pretty close. It's not Pete Bowling Jewish. Sound it out. It's not Pete Butto. Here's how it's pronounced. It goes Heat, Boot, and Edge. Heat, Boot, and Edge. Heat, Boot, and Edge. Heat, Boot, and Edge.
I don't know that that's really helpful. I feel more
That's not going to win a Grammy
confused.
anytime soon.
I feel more confused than I did before the song.
What, Pete Buttigieg? Still
There we
can't
go.
say it.
Mika's got it. Mika's getting
It's
it.
got the spirit of it for sure.
It feels like Friday in here
Absolutely.
suddenly.
Oh, I know.
Adam, do you think he's a real contender in the Democratic primary, though?
I think we should not lose sight of the fact that this poll had a 6-point margin of error. I think it's very early, but I think he is getting a lot of recognition in Iowa for taking a vision and being direct and talking straight to voters about what he wants to do for the country, how he wants to take the country. They're clearly responding to that. He's getting a lot of attention for that. That's what this process is about. He's not talking about the Mueller report. He's talking about health care. He's talking
None
about
of the
taxes.
candidates are really
None of
talking about the Mueller report, and nor have they been. And,
Right.
and 2018 candidates really didn't
Exactly
run
right.
on the Mueller report either.
And that's what Democrats are going to win on next year.
Mika will know Mayor Pete has made it when he gets a nickname from the president.
Yes. Yes. And of course, now instead of calling him Beto, we're calling him Robert Francis. And, you know, I never pay attention to polls. They were totally wrong in 2016. I pay attention to how much money a candidate can raise.
Well, he's done pretty well on that front. He had a big bump after a CNN town hall that people responded to positively. But, I mean, do you think he'd be a formidable contender? He's from the Midwest. Do you think he may have some traction in some of the states that'll be most important in 2020?
He's a nice guy, but no. I still think my underdog is Robert Francis O'Rourke.
Oh, yeah?
He raised
You
$6
and
million in 24 hours.
That
He
says a
raised
lot.
$80 million against an incumbent Republican in a red state. He affected us down ballot in Texas, and you know, he's unorthodox, he's charismatic. He was campaigning on the top of a minivan recently in Las Vegas.
Oh my
I'm
God.
with Mika, and once he busts out that acoustic guitar on top of the
Yes.
crystal, it's all over.
I think the one thing that Mayor Pete, I won't try to pronounce his last name, I'm sure I'll get it wrong, is that it does call into question a bit of the obituary on our bench, right? The people were saying that Democrats had no good candidates. How are we going to match against Donald Trump? Nobody's saying that now. And even the 37-year-old mayor of South Bend, Indiana, is proving that if you have ideas, if you have a vision and you're principled about it, you can make a strong case to voters. And that's clearly what he's doing in the campaign. We'll see, as I've said to you guys, like, when they've all been to Iowa and they've met the cow at the State Farm, then we can assess what the polls say at that point. But until then, it's kind of
It's one poll, it's early, it's got a big margin of error, all those caveats good. But I do think that he's having a little bit of a moment and is a very capable, smart, able individual. So we'll see.
Thanks so much,
guys.
guys.
Good morning.
You rock
Good morning.
the panel, as always.
Coming up, we've got a few more thoughts before we go.